Good afternoon. Oh, has the recording started? Okay, the recording is
Yes.
wonderful. Good afternoon, Nele. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here this afternoon. And thank you for submitting your report on time as well. That is a great deal of help to us all. So I'm going to pass over to Jerry, who's going to ask you some questions, some from some of the other panelists who couldn't be here today, and then we'll move forward.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi, Nila.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, our first question is, are there any specific events planned yet for student sex workers during Women History Month?
Yes, so there's a panel planned for student sex workers on the 16th of March, and it's kind of the second installment in the student sex work event series that I'm running together with the university, together with a sociology lecturer called Jessica Smith, who's done her PhD and whose written her PhD on the topic of student sex work, and her research expertise is in student sex work. And I'm organizing a panel about student sex work together with her. And it's basically, so the first event that we had was the student sex work training on how staff can effectively support student sex workers. And another event that we're planning down the line is kind of the flip side of student sex work and the risks that it could be, that risks that exist by virtue of being a student sex worker, the discrimination that student sex workers face, and kind of common arguments that people kind of bring forward if they are against sex work or student sex work in general. And the event that I'm planning during Women's History Month is kind of like a link in between those two events. And we're trying to kind of provide a safe space for student sex workers and allies of student sex workers and people who are interested in the topic to kind of come along to and ask questions. And on the panel will be a former PhD student of Jessica's, who is also doing research into student sex work, but who also has experience working as a student sex worker themselves. Jessica herself, because she has a research expertise into the topic and has, over the course of her research, talked a lot with different student sex workers. Sophia, who you guys might have heard of in relationship to the BDSM panel. She's the kind of BDSM facilitator, sex work educator that I've had here for Shag Week. And she used to work as a sex worker and is quite good and open at kind of creating a safe space for that kind of stuff. So she's going to be on the panel, and we're currently waiting to hear back from another former student sex worker that has expressed interest in being on the panel. And then I'm going to be on the panel myself just to facilitate and ask questions and take questions from the audience. So yeah, that's happening on the 16th of March as part of Women's History Month online. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. What is doing done to raise awareness for the topic you mentioned within Women's History Month?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. What is doing done to raise awareness for the topic you mentioned within Women's History Month?
Sorry, I still don't quite understand the question.
Okay, let me.
To raise awareness for the topics you mentioned within Women's History Month. Yeah, okay, brilliant. So we're doing, I'm working together closely with our student staff, Aisha, on Women's History Month, and together with Natalie, who's the staff support. And we're basically planning most of the awareness raising to happen online. So Aisha is very interested in running a marketing campaign on women's health, which is also one of my topics that I'm passionate about, mainly sexual health, obviously, which I've done during Shag Week. But we're preparing social media content to go out during the campaign during kind of the whole week of March around cervical cancer awareness, women's health in general, period poverty, and that kind of stuff. So we're assembling a website similar to the one that we had during LGBT History Month, where a lot of resources are linked. So a lot of kind of the awareness raising is going to happen over social media and online. So students can engage with it outside of the campaign, even if they can't kind of come to events, and we wanted to kind of be accessible to students at the time and place that they kind of choose to access those resources. And I'm currently planning the event for student sex work. That is obviously going to have a awareness raising element to it, just by virtue of putting that kind of event on. So that's what is currently planning. I have been very busy planning Eating Disorder Awareness Week, which is next week, and the student strike. So after those two events are done, I'm gonna focus a little bit more on Women's History Month and plan a few more events, maybe one or two that I'll have time for. So it isn't quite finished yet in planning, so there's still some stuff to come, but that's what's currently being planned.
Okay. Have you been in contact with Criado Perez?
With who, sorry?
Criado Perez, I think.
Not yet. So I haven't had time to reach out to guest speakers yet. That is definitely someone who is on my list. I'm talking to Aisha to include the gender data gap, which is basically what Caroline Perez is an expert on, to include that. So even if we can't get her as a guest speaker, there will definitely be an element of awareness raising around the topic that I would like her to speak on, could we get her. But I haven't had time to reach out to potential guest speakers for Women's History Month yet. But yeah, that is still on the to-do list, but I haven't been in contact with her yet, no.
Yeah, so you have some alternatives if you cannot contact him.
Yeah, so if we can't get her to speak on Women's History Month, I have a list of alternative guest speakers that are kind of have an expertise similar to the one that she would provide, which is into kind of the gender data gap, which is which happens to be an interest of Aisha's as well, which is very good. So we're working kind of together on getting some guest speakers in for that. But if she can't make it, then there are alternatives.
Okay. Have you been in contact with the gym regarding the training sessions? What is the progress?
Which training sessions?
Let me check. Maybe none more knows more about it.
That is a good question. That's one of the questions from one of the panelists who isn't here today. I think Henry has an answer.
Yeah, was it not the women-only sessions in the gym?
That sounds plausible.
Or the boxing classes?
Yeah.
That's probably the one that refers to.
Yeah, so I'm yet to kind of bring an angle of kind of women in sport into Women's History Month, which is definitely something that's on my list because it's quite, I think it's quite a good angle to take because varsity is also happening in March and it's obviously like our biggest kind of sports event throughout the year. So I have been talking to Natalie and put it on Kaylee's radar that I want to do something around kind of women in sports. So that's where the women's only sessions in the gym would fall into, and maybe a kind of version of This Girl Can, which is a campaign that has been running in previous years that might be kind of revived just for the day as kind of a collaborative effort between Women's History Month and varsity. But that is yet to happen, but it is on my list to kind of pick up once eating disorder awareness and the student strike is through next week.
Okay, the last question that I have is, what are your hopes and aims and aimings to promote your events, and what kind of support are you receiving from your fellow officers?
What report is the question? What support I'm receiving from the fellow officers in promoting my events?
Yeah.
I think we're kind of good at promoting each other, like each other's events, and kind of support each other when things are going on. I haven't been kind of as focused on promoting Women's History Month and the events just yet, because I wanted to kind of give a bit of airtime to the other officers' campaigns, because Activism Week has just kind of gone out, and now Jarbett's Global Greenwich is happening. So I'm doing a lot of work, have been doing work to kind of promote their campaigns, and they will be doing the same for me. I know for Eating Disorder Awareness Week and the Student Strike and Women's History Month. And yeah, I'm working quite closely together with our comms team to promote my events. But yeah, I think we are quite good at kind of giving each other shout outs. So yeah, I'm pretty positive that that's the report I will be support I will be receiving, just like I did in the first term.
Okay, good. I think now it's none.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Okay, so in terms of, I don't have very many questions for you. Yes, so in terms of what I would kind of like to find out a bit more about is just sort of like a quick personal review on the work that you have done since our previous panel, and what you feel as though that you've significantly done between last time we met and this time.
Sure. Could you just remind me very briefly when our last scrutiny panel was? December?
Ooh, December sounds about right.
December, yeah. So the main thing that I've done is kind of plan 3 campaigns simultaneously, which is Eating Disorder Awareness Week, the Student Strike, and Women's History Month. But as I said earlier, Women's History Month, I haven't quite got the chance to give as much attention to as I would have wanted due to these other 2 campaigns. So that's gonna kind of come. But that's, I think, what I've done in terms of kind of campaigning work. So a lot of kind of planning around that, and the student sex work panel, and kind of my area of work that I'm quite passionate about, which I've done during Shag Week, which is sexual liberation, is like a big part of that. And it's quite it's an event that I'm really excited about. And I've been collaborating a lot with the university on that one. I've also have quite a big input from the university on Eating Disorder Awareness Week. So I've just been meeting a lot of university people that are kind of interested in the topic, that are asking how they can get involved. So I spend kind of a lot of time talking to them, and the Eating Disorder Awareness Week is also going to have a kind of fixed spot, and is going to receive attention from the university on University Mental Health Day, which I think is quite good, and kind of try to make an effort to make the campaign reach students that aren't necessarily receiving them if we would just be putting it out over our GSU channels. So that's been taking up quite a lot of my time. And other than that, I obviously have the remit for education, which is quite big. And that takes up quite a bit of my time to go to university meetings that are around education. I've kind of put together a long feedback piece on behalf of our team, feeding into the Student Success Sub-Strategy, which is run by Jane Roscoe, who's the Deputy Vice Chancellor. So I've put together like quite an extensive feedback piece on the Student Success Sub-Strategy for her that we've went through together on behalf of my team. Yeah, staying afloat on the kind of issues that students are coming to us with. I spend a lot of time in the office, so I do kind of do a lot of signposting for students if they kind of come to the door with an issue and they kind of need support. I do a lot of kind of signposting and listening to kind of their concerns, trying to figure out how I can help them, and obviously doing my best to help them. But yeah, between like kind of organizing those 3 campaigns, going to my usual meetings, and like liaising with the university and signposting students, that's how I spent the time basically since the last scrutiny panel.
Alrighty, okay, thank you. And I suppose in the more student-facing day-to-day aspect of your work, what would probably be the most common issue that you faced in, for instance, student priorities or main obstacles to your work where the students are concerned? Because I'm thinking about, of course, you have all of the campaign work and things that you'd like to do, but then, of course, there are immediate student priorities that if they come along would kind of put a backbench on some of those stuff. So what's kind of like the main focus been on that side of things, or any challenges in that area?
Yeah, so a really big one has been exams. So as the lead for FLAS, I've had a lot of students contacting me last year concerning their December exams. And there were mainly third-year students who were concerned that they were supposed to sit their exams in person when they hadn't sat a university exam in person because they've been studying online. And they were concerned because they didn't know how to really do that, and because in third year, obviously, your grades are rated. They have a more significant impact on your final grade than they would in first or second year. And that resolved itself because the university moved exams online for COVID, but that issue came back up in the first term in the second term, when students were starting to think about their examinations in May. So I've had a lot of student feedback from FLAS, because that's my faculty, surrounding that. And I've been in contact quite closely with, they've contacted the Vice Chancellor and Marco Thomas, who's the Pro Vice Chancellor for FLAS. So I've been kind of liaising with the students and Jane and Mark on that issue, and they've now made the decision to have students in third year and PGR students sit exams online, and not having them go back in person, which was directly influenced by kind of the students coming to me and then me liaising together with the students to make that decision. So that's been quite a big kind of student mandated piece of work that's been a success. That's that. A lot of students are facing kind of issues with attendance monitoring at the moment. That's a really big piece. So especially for international students, and attendance monitoring is really wild at the moment, and there's like specific guidance from the university as to how module leaders and lecturers are supposed to kind of monitor their students' attendance, and it's very important that they do that, especially for international students, because their visas require them to attend, because otherwise they can be kicked out of the country. And if kind of the university lacks in recording the attendance, then students are being withdrawn. So that's a very big piece that we're dealing with at the moment, where students come to us and they say, okay, I've been withdrawn from my course, or I'm about to be withdrawn from my course, because I've been apparently not attending, but I have been attending and I don't really know what's going on. And a lot of our time is kind of spent dealing with that. It is something that I've brought to kind of senior leadership of the university already, and I have another meeting. We have another meeting with a kind of senior member of leadership in the university where I'm going to bring it up again. But that's kind of the other big thing that we're facing at the moment. That exams have been sorted out now. That's the other big thing.
Okay. That's actually quite an interesting discussion that I don't want to get so deep into, because we'll be way past 5:30. Yeah, because that has a lot of interesting things attached to it. It's a whole wormhole by himself. So is that a challenge that you've seen across the board of all students, or have you seen any unique issues presented to postgrad students? Because I think you're also responsible for postgrad students, right?
Yeah, definitely. So the postgrad students that I've been speaking to, and we had a meeting with them this week, Sophie and I. And a lot of kind of the issues that they're facing with the university has to do with kind of the divide between them, and this is for PhD students specifically. So the divide between them being staff members because they teach, so they're TAs, and it's because most of them want to go into teaching after they finish their PhD. So it is quite valuable experience for them, and a lot of them want to do it, but they are also students. So it's often kind of quite hard for them to walk the line between, okay, I am a member of the institution and there are things in the institution that I'm really unhappy about that I want to kind of do something about. But yeah, like we talked a lot about kind of how postgrad students can walk that line and how we can kind of support them to walk that line. And other than that, I've been involved in a discussion with postgraduate students around a VC scholarship. So that's like a scholarship of the university, basically. And students have kind of put a piece forward that a specific kind of amount of money from that big pot of money should be ring-fenced for disabled students. So that is something that postgraduate students have brought forward to the university that I've been involved in, and that I've been supporting them in putting forward. I've kind of not answered your question, haven't I? I've gone a bit. I've derailed myself a little bit in the conversation now.
Sort of, but it's still relevant. It's still relevant.
Okay,
because, for instance, all of that you just kind of described for me, is that the outcome of the work you're doing towards having that postgrad forum, or is that kind of more evidence that that forum is needed?
So I think that's more evidence that this that the forum is needed. So the discussion. So I've kind of met with the students outside of the forum to kind of catch up, to have a bit more of an informal chat about this issues that they're facing, and then they've kind of brought up, okay, we're putting forward this piece and we want to loop you in. We would like the SU support, and then within the forum, that's kind of the space where I then kind of actively support them when they bring this kind of stuff forward. So I work with them in like having an informal kind of conversation first, and then trying to support them in that forum as much as I can, which is a challenge because I've never done a postgrad degree. So a lot of the kind of the specific issues that they face because they are postgrads are new to me. So like it sometimes takes me a bit of time to kind of understand what the issue is, because I'm just not familiar with kind of the specific regulations for postgrad students. But yeah, I think it's more evidence that that forum is really needed, and that I think like we, as the SU and as the education lead, like really need to spend time kind of with postgrad students even more than we do, because we're good at understanding undergrads, but like it is hard to kind of understand postgrads if you haven't had the experience of being a postgrad yourself. So yeah. Okay,
that's great. I suppose this will be in your actions, but I would be personally interested to find out sort of your plans for like, I don't want to say a permanent structure, but something to ensure the preservation of that forum, structures in place to make sure that forum actually fulfills its purpose and has its required access and venting. Okay, cool. So I suppose with the last probably 3-ish minutes that we have, maybe 2-ish minutes now that I've said that sentence, I would kind of ask really about what you feel has been the key impact of the student success strategy and the work that you've been doing towards that with the, I was about to say vice chancellor, but that doesn't really make sense, but I think you know what I mean.
Deputy vice chancellor.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So it hasn't been super easy to kind of engage with the student success sub-strategy, because the university is, and I feel like that is just that's just a function of being a students' union working with a university, but they aren't super adamant always to bring us in. It's not like I wouldn't say they purposefully kind of exclude us from conversations, but we often kind of have to chase them rather than kind of them bringing a piece of work to us and asking us, hey, what do you think? So I obviously knew that the students' success sub-strategy was a part of the new university strategy because it's been published right before we started. So I knew it was coming, and I knew it was kind of going to be a piece of my work as the lead for education. But yeah, I didn't really know what it kind of all entailed. And we had an away day with the Deputy Vice Chancellor in November, I want to say, which John, Attica and I attended together, where we kind of talked about the students' success strategy, but it was relatively informal. And then the Deputy Vice Chancellor, who's also called Jane, she presented the kind of formalized student success sub-strategy 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I kind of saw that piece of work for the first time formalized in kind of a structure where she was already presenting it as like a finished piece. And she hadn't really brought us in kind of beforehand, and had kind of kept us a little bit out of like where they are in that cycle of actually implementing that strategy. So then kind of my piece of work was, okay, can you like pause? Can we have a meeting about this? Can we kind of formally feed in? Because it is a very, like, it's actually going to have an impact on students. And it should be like, if we should feed in on any of the strategies, we should feed in on all of them. But if we should really kind of have a like steering voice in one strategy, it is that one. So then my piece of work was kind of like, okay, stop, please, like, can you bring me in? So we talked at our partnership board, which is basically our meeting with our SLT and the university SLT. We had a really good productive conversation with them about the student success subject strategy, and then I kind of brought my team together and consolidated a document of feedback to send to Jane Roscoe, which was like based on the presentation that she gave us and based on the written out strategy that they published, because they were a bit different and they shouldn't be different. So I've kind of worked together with both drafts and then kind of brought my team together and put that forward to her. And yeah, she's been very appreciative of that. That was last week. And I'm kind of yet to have a follow-up meeting with her on kind of, okay, do you have any questions? Is all of that clear? Does it make sense? Which is going to happen the week after next. So that's where we're at. And yeah, I kind of had to fight a little bit for the kind of feedback space, I think, but it's been good. They've been appreciative of it. So yeah.
Okay. That's great, and that's something I'd be interested to find out more about at next panel. But for the sake of time, we've got to stop there. Otherwise, we'll have to keep Attica waiting outside, and that's not fair.